Nobody saw it coming. Not his team, not his family, not the millions of NASCAR fans around the world who had just watched him compete 4 days earlier. On Thursday, May 21st, 2026, NASCAR lost one of the greatest drivers it has ever seen. Kyle Busch, two-time Cup Series champion, the winningest driver in NASCAR history across all 3 national series, was gone at just 41 years old. And now, as the racing community tries to make sense of the unthinkable, the story of what actually happened in Kyle Busch's final days is just now starting to come to the surface.
Championship. A great day for Kyle Larson.
7th career win in his 100th.
Joey Logano takes the checkered flag. Hell yeah, boys!
Before we get into what happened, you need to understand what this man meant to NASCAR. Because if you only knew Kyle Busch as the guy people love to hate, the cocky, fiery, win-at-all-costs driver in the number 8 car, then you only knew half the story. Kyle Busch was the first driver in NASCAR history to hold the all-time wins record across all 3 of the sport's major series simultaneously. He finished his career with 234 victories across NASCAR's top 3 series, the most in the history of the sport. 2 NASCAR Cup Series championships, wins at every major track in America. A career so dominant that rivals stopped asking if he could win and started asking how many times he could win. He was a polarizing figure. He loved to play the role of the villain, but he had legions of passionate fans as well. People loved Busch, and they loved to hate him. But that hate, which was always tinged with admiration for his undeniable driving ability, melted in the face of his sudden death. He was in his 22nd full-time NASCAR Cup Series season. He was still racing, still competing, still chasing wins. And 3 days before the Coca-Cola 600 at Charlotte Motor Speedway, he was supposed to be lining up on that grid. Instead, the sport he dedicated his entire life to had to say goodbye. Here is where the story gets heartbreaking. Because this did not come out of nowhere. There were signs that in hindsight feel impossible to ignore, but that nobody understood the gravity of until it was too late. 11 days before his death, Kyle Busch radioed to his crew during a NASCAR Cup Series race at Watkins Glen in New York, asking for a doctor to give him a shot after he finished the race.
And can somebody try to find Bill Heisel, the Hendrick doctor guy? Tell him I need him after the race, please.
Hey, do you want Mr. Bill at your car and at your bus after the race?
Bus. I'm going to need a shot.
Copy. He'll be at your bus.
On television broadcasts, commentators noted Kyle had been battling some sort of sinus cold that was being made worse by the intense G-forces and elevation changes at the Watkins Glen course. That was May 10th, a sinus cold. That is what it looked like from the outside. But Kyle Busch kept going, because that is who he was. Despite the health issue, Kyle kept competing, winning a Truck Series race on May 15th, and then competing in the NASCAR All-Star race on May 17th, just 4 days before his death. On Wednesday, May 20th, Busch was testing at a racing simulator in Concord, North Carolina, when he became unresponsive and was transported to a hospital in Charlotte. A 911 call obtained by media outlets revealed that someone at the facility told dispatch that the patient was coughing up some blood while looking like they were going to pass out. Busch's family said he was hospitalized with a severe illness 3 days before he was to compete in the Coca-Cola 600 at Charlotte Motor Speedway. The announcement went out. The racing world held its breath. And then just hours later, on Thursday, May 21st, 2026, came the news that nobody was prepared to receive. Kyle Busch was gone. The Busch family released a statement indicating that the medical evaluation concluded that severe pneumonia progressed into sepsis, resulting in rapid and overwhelming associated complications. A man who started the 2026 Daytona 500 on pole position. A man who had just won a Truck Series race 6 days before he ended up in a hospital. Gone in a matter of days because of an illness that escalated so rapidly it left no room to fight back. He was 41 years old. Busch's death marked a sudden, staggering blow to the motorsports community. That is the official language. But the reality was far more raw than that. The shock and devastation of Kyle Busch's sudden death shattered the racing world as it headed into one of its premier weekends of the year. The Coca-Cola 600 weekend at Charlotte Motor Speedway, one of NASCAR's biggest events on the calendar, was suddenly not about racing. It was about grief. Charlotte Motor Speedway opened its doors to what would, under normal circumstances, be one of its most celebrated weekends of the year. The grey skies and spitting rain fit the collective gloom, and the track's scoring pylon went dark, save for one beaming marker. Kyle Busch's number 8 stood alone in the P1 spot. If that doesn't give you chills, I don't know what will. As the flowers and memorials began to pile up at Richard Childress Racing Team's front doors, the industry felt the weight of Busch's impact. Tributes from drivers, team owners, NASCAR officials, and fans poured in from every corner of the globe. People who spent years booing Kyle Busch at racetracks were now in tears talking about what he meant to the sport. Richard Childress Racing announced it will suspend the use of Busch's number 8 car and will instead run the number 33 car going forward. The number 8, the car Kyle Busch had made iconic at RCR, would not race again. Out of respect, out of love. Because some numbers belong to some people and you just don't put anyone else in them. People who didn't follow NASCAR closely might have only known Kyle Busch as the loud one, the arrogant one, the one who always seemed to be stirring up controversy or celebrating too hard or saying something that rubbed people the wrong way. And yeah, that was part of who he was. He leaned into being NASCAR's villain with confidence and with humor. He knew the role. He played it well, and he was good enough that he could back it up every single week. More than any driver of his generation, Busch reshaped what dominance looked like in NASCAR. He was the first to hold the all-time wins record across all 3 of the sport's major series simultaneously, winning in ways that left rivals wondering whether records existed, only to be broken by him. And perhaps the most remarkable thing about Kyle Busch, he never stopped. Right up until those final days, he was still there, still showing up, still competing, still winning races in the Truck Series at 41 years old because he genuinely could not imagine doing anything else. He once said, and these words hit completely differently now, "You take whatever you can get, man. You never know when the last one is going to be, so cherish them all, trust me." He knew something about that more than most. 234 wins, 2 Cup Series championships, a Daytona 500 start on pole position just months ago, a Truck Series victory just 6 days before he ended up in a hospital, a career that spanned 22 full-time seasons in NASCAR's top division, a number 8 car that an entire team has decided nobody else should drive. Busch was always a bright light and a towering presence over stock car racing's home court and beyond. The loss is difficult to measure, a past tense reality that doesn't feel possible. That's the honest truth of it. It doesn't feel possible. Because 3 weeks ago, Kyle Busch was racing, he was winning, he was doing the only thing he ever wanted to do. And now every track on the NASCAR schedule is going to feel a little emptier. Every race is going to have a gap in it that nobody will ever truly fill.